I'm speaking today with Adam Turner, artistic director and conductor of the Virginia Opera. And Virginia Opera, as they have in the past, is going to open the season with something new. And that is the opera by Kurt Weill called Street Scene. And having said the word opera, I'm going to invite Adam to talk about that and opera versus Broadway.
Yeah.
And maybe a comparison, which is almost inevitable with Porgy and Bess.
Sure.
With this particular slice of Americana with music by a German composer. It's a fascinating piece of theater.
Yeah. You've opened up a can of worms.
I know that.
But there are multiple things in your opening statement. Number one, German composer, and number two, the Broadway versus opera. There's an infamous Times an editorial that Kurt Weill, or Kurt Weill as he started calling himself when he became an American, he wrote a letter to the editor of Time magazine where they had, after the opening of Street Scene, a big success on Broadway that it was, they had actually called him a German composer. And he wrote a really kind letter to the editor, and saying that, I respectfully, I really thank you so much for your kind words about my piece, but please never call me a German ever again. I'm an American. So when he moved here in 1930, he left Germany in 33, and 35 finally got to America, and never spoke another word of German. He and his wife became Americans, and in 41, fully earned their status as an American citizen. Yeah. So anyway, that's number one. Number two, the Broadway versus opera. It's fascinating to me because in that period of history, certainly in the 1940s and 50s, a lot of operas got their start on Broadway. I mean, I think of Giancarlo Menotti. Many of his operas were premiered, debuted on the Broadway, in the Broadway theaters, and Kurt Weill was kind of the same way. He didn't. I don't think he discriminated, or as far as his styles of pieces. He had everything. He wrote operettas, stage works that kind of had slices and dices of music, and then fully fledged operas.
Yeah. Film scores too.
I mean, there's a little bit of everything. And the list of collaborators. I mean, Alan J. Lerner, Maxwell Anderson. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And then, of course, with this piece, Elmer Rice, the famous playwright, and then the Harlem Renaissance poet Langston Hughes as lyricist. I mean, there are so many elements at play here.
What it comes down to, if you really look at it overall, is a melting pot, which is exactly what Street Scene is all about, isn't it?
That's right. If you've ever seen the King Vidor film, the adaptation of Street Scene from 1931, you know right away this is a piece about immigrants. It's a melting pot of America. It's a snapshot of American history, the 1920s, 1930s, and all these various nationalities living together under one roof and just trying to survive as new Americans. And so in this piece, it's incredible. It's a melting pot of creative collaborators, and also the characters in the piece. I mean, Italians, Germans, Swedish, it's everything.
And the musical styles reflect that.
Absolutely. That's the great part about it is it's everything from Italian Verismo to the foxtrot, a Broadway shuffle, a Rodgers and Hammerstein style number at one point, the blues. It really has every style represented at some point.
I guess that's why some critics or some people don't like it, because they can't pigeonhole it. Yeah.
That's why I love it.
Well, yeah, exactly.
It's the best of both worlds, and I think that's probably why it's sustained for so many years. Its position as one of the landmarks of the 20th century and of that period of history. But this is one of those pieces that demands a style of singing. When it premiered, it was the same thing. Kurt Weill wanted a mixture of Broadway actors and fully fledged opera singers to carry the piece. And so the four principals, I'll say, the four really big leads are the Morants. There are three Morants, Frank and Anna and their daughter Rose, and then the poetic neighbor Sam Kaplan, who has this beautiful aria "Lonely House," which I've accompanied so many times and heard every tenor imaginable sing that in an audition setting. It's just a glorious piece.
I've read that Weill suggests that sort of informs the entire show.
Lonely House?
Lonely House,
absolutely.
Yes.
The lyrics are all about, it's funny how you can be so lonely with all those folks around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a blues number. It's funny because it's the poet Sam, he's a Jewish immigrant and studying to be a lawyer, and he is in love with Rose, who has an abusive father and a mother that's having an affair on the side, and so she's got a crazy life too. And he just adores Rose, and he sings this piece. It's in a blues style. It's so funny. It's called an arioso in the opera, in the piano vocal score, but it's truly a blues, and yet it requires this Italian tenor style. Kurt Weill is constantly blurring the lines of opera versus Broadway. But he is quoted as saying he was referring to Verdi during the entire creative writing of the process.
Interesting.
He looked at how Verdi adapted the Shakespearean operas, Otello, Falstaff, and Hamlet, Macbeth, sorry, and was looking at how he adapted those because Weill wanted to make sure that he did the same thing with Elmer Rice's perfect play. And so that was kind of his example. And you do hear some Verdi scattered throughout. There's the Ice Cream Sextet.
Ice Cream Sextet.
Yeah.
That tenor line is just amazing.
It's absolutely bel canto through and through.
Yeah.
And so that's one of my favorite moments of the show. But yes, this is a piece that has all of those styles, every single one of them.
So this is going to be exciting. Street Scene, opening the season for Virginia Opera, conducted by Adam Turner, our guest, and we're looking forward to it.
I can't wait.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.